Tuesday, August 7th, and I am delighted to welcome back to the program Larry Nichols. Larry, welcome to Tuesday.
Thank you. We're back again.
Back again. It's great having you on in this regular time slot at 3 p.m. Eastern and 2 p.m. Central. How you feeling today, Larry?
Okay, doing better. Doing better. Hanging in there.
Your voice sounds strong, so that's good. There's been a lot going on, Larry. I've titled this episode Maxine Waters, Paul Manafort, Alex Jones, InfoWars, YouTube Purge 2.0. Larry Nichols told you so, because you did tell us so. Maxine Waters has been acting crazy. Paul Manafort has been stuck in solitary confinement in the absence of any kind of conviction. Alex Jones, of course, has been censored by Facebook, YouTube, Apple, I guess podcasts. I'm not sure how Apple censored him, but Alex is being clamped down, and you've basically predicted all of these things.
It's going to come. You know, I have begged people for years now. I have begged for people to not get so dependent on the internet as your only source of information, because it could be gone, and it is going to be gone. And I believe beyond any shadow of a doubt now, more so than even ever, that they have made an absolute commitment that we will not be able to use the internet in the 2018 election cycle. We're not going to be able to, Jason.
So you mean
they're setting us up as we speak?
These alternative media sources, you're saying, are going to be shut down and prevented from having influence over the midterm elections. You think Alex had a major impact on Donald Trump's election?
I think Alex commands a large audience, so that makes him immediately a target. You're a target. Lord knows I'm a target.
Right.
And, you know, it's just what they're going to do, Jason. Everything's going to change. Look, Hillary is doing what we call clearing the road right now. Clearing the road. And what does that mean? That means she's making sure that everything that she perceived caused her trouble in the election, in this campaign against Trump, she is systematically making sure that every bit of that is being eliminated now, before it gets close to the election where things could be blamed on her. For example, I'm going to say it, we're going to start seeing, which I hope I'm not one, we're going to start seeing people have Arkancides again. We are.
Who do you think is going to be on that list,
Larry? Making sure that every bit of that is being eliminated now.
Right.
Hello, did we do something? I just heard me talking.
Yes, sorry, that was my error. I've got so many web pages open here. Well, who do you think is on that short list for Arkansas? Yeah.
Oh, Lord, I can't tell you. I can only tell you one person that I know. When Bill Clinton was asked who was his greatest enemy on TV, ABC, or wherever it was, he said, oh, that's simple, Larry Nichols, and Larry Nichols, not necessarily in that order. So I feel fairly comfortable that I would be considered removable on that list.
Wouldn't that be easy?
I've been there before, Jason.
But Larry, wouldn't it be easy for them to do? I mean, you're a man who is in the autumn years, and people know your health hasn't been well. They could tap you with one of these heart attack guns, and I don't think people in the mainstream, at least, would ever suspect any foul play. Why have they not?
Well, we don't know what they're up to right yet.
Right.
But don't be deceived. It's coming. It will come. And it's not just me. And you're right. I mean, what I think may have messed them up with me is due to health issues. I think they were saying we was going to die off anyway. We don't have to do anything. Just let nature run its course.
Right.
But it's getting to the point where they can't count on nature. So they may have to take matters into their own hands. But
Sure.
you're going to see, you can put this down in your little Nichols quotable quotes here. If she is indeed running in 2020, they are starting now clearing the road.
Wow.
Making sure if there's evidence out there that it disappears. Making sure that if there are witnesses out there that they disappear. It'll happen. I know
Well,
these people, Jason. This is how they do. This is what they do.
from a general political strategy standpoint, Larry, don't you think Hillary Clinton running again is just about the stupidest possible move that any politician could make? She's proven to be a terrible candidate who could not beat a reality television star. There's obviously FBI investigations going on, and it just seems like she's guaranteed to lose.
Well, she has a hurdle that she has to get over, and that is the Democratic Party feels, I believe, my opinion, I mean, they don't talk to me about it, but I believe the Democratic Party feels slighted for that very reason. They can't believe anybody could lose to Donald Trump, yet she did. And so there are people in the party that adamantly do not want her anywhere near running. But Hillary and Bill still have power. Don't doubt it.
Right.
And then as far as her, here's what they believe. The Democrats believe that as long as Trump is running and is in the race, whoever wins the Democratic Party primary is going to be the next president of the United States.
Really?
They believe with the media, they believe by controlling alternative media, they believe by correcting a lot of the things that slipped up on them in 2016, that they are going to drive Trump so far down that Howdy Doody could beat him.
I don't think so, though. It seems like Donald Trump is gaining in popularity. I think we've seen things like the walk away movement and people, you know, kind of moving towards Trump. But, I mean, you raise an interesting point, and it brings me back to Alex Jones, that, you know, this does seem like kind of a preliminary strike to take out Alex. I don't know if you know about this resource, Larry, but Mike Adams, the health ranger, has created Real.video. And of course, InfoWars is still available there. So I think when you were saying the internet is going to be unavailable, I think you meant that they're going to close out the major mega billionaire things like you know, YouTube and Google and Twitter. But it's interesting to see how these alternatives are showing up. I mean, Alex is still on air. Obviously, his reach has been basically crippled by eliminating YouTube, which is the biggest platform. And it's interesting to see how Google has followed a very Rockefeller-like, Standard Oil-like, you know, anti-competition kind of unfair business practice, where they've created such a robust video platform in YouTube that the ability for someone like Mike Adams to create a competitive platform is really limited, because so many people are on YouTube and it provides so much for free that making a competitor is a real problem. Larry, a lot of people have written to me asking why they don't see you on InfoWars any longer. Is that a question you feel comfortable answering?
Yeah, I'll answer it. I will. One of the problems that I have had with Alex, and I was with Alex, I was doing shortwave, and when he first got in to radio, he even scheduled his program to be right after mine on shortwave on the network I was on, so that he could get my audience to hang over and listen to him, which he did. But I told Alex back then, Alex, you've got to be careful. Everything you're doing with this sensational type programming. And that's fine on days when things are happening that are sensational. But there are times, Jason, when you don't have big conspiratorial, exciting things going on. And what Alex has done over the years is when there's been a lull in actual conspiracy stuff, he's gone out and he's picked up on some of these wilder conspiracies. One, as an example, that was cited apparently in their knocking him off the air, saying that, he backed the story of Sandy Hook or whatever it's called, and he claimed that it was not real. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if it was or wasn't real. I find it hard for me to believe that the parents of those children could lie about it and that they could put them in some storehouse somewhere and they stay hidden for all these years. I don't know. Sounds a little far-fetched to me. But you see, back in stories like that, Jason, hurts your credibility. Yes, there's an audience out there. Yes, there are people out there that, look, there are people that like to read books for a hobby. There are people that like to watch scary movies for a hobby. And you know what? There are people out there that like to get all hootered up about conspiracies in our government.
Right.
There are.
But then again, Larry,
and Alex capitalizes off of that.
Sure. But of course, there are conspiracies. We see it. We see it with what's going on in the FBI. Now, just to backtrack a little bit, I do believe that Alex has had guests on who have questioned the veracity of the official story with regard to Sandy Hook, but I've heard him vehemently deny any of the claims that are attributed to him relative to Sandy Hook. The latest video, this was from 10 days ago, where he's saying CNN lies about banned InfoWars videos. So I don't know the full details. I've reached out to the people at InfoWars. Yeah.
I don't either. And Jason, another one that he picked up on and pushed, and I even warned him against this one, was that Pizzagate story.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying there wasn't a pedophile ring. I'm not saying that at all. But some people I know and respect very much investigated this underground, tunnel and place. A lot of that turned out to be kind of not substantiated, at least not yet. But it's all of those kind of things added. So when I go on with Alex, even though I don't talk about that stuff, and I don't, when I go off of Alex, if right after I go off, people that come on after me or Alex himself, they get into that kind of material, I will hear from people all over the country, Jason, saying they can't believe it. I said this, and this, and that what do you know about this scandal, this thing or that thing? I'm going, I don't know anything. Well, you said you did on Alex Jones. No, I didn't. And it got so bad, Jason, that I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't. If you go on with Alex, you have to be careful. I love him to death. He's been great to me. He's been good to me. I do not intend in any way to besmirch him and his character in any way. But if you go on, you have to be careful, Jason, not about just what you say, but you have to be careful about what the gist of the broadcast is about, because you will find out very soon after you're off the air that whatever Alex is talking about, it's as though you said it.
I see.
And it's very hurtful.
Right. Well, it's interesting,
Very
this
hurtful.
whole Pizzagate situation, Larry, because, you know, Comet Pizza and Ping Pong there in Washington, D.C., there are a number of strange things about it. The thing that sticks out most in my mind, setting aside the images from Instagram and all of that, you know, GQ magazine decided that this guy, James Alefantis, was the 49th most powerful guy in all of Washington, D.C., which has got to be essentially the most powerful city in the world. How does a pizza shop owner, I mean, if I could ask James Alefantis a question, that would be it. How does GQ determine that you're the most powerful guy in Washington, D.C.? Why is George Soros donating money to a political action committee formed by this pizza shop? I mean, is he just, it doesn't make sense to me. Even if he's a politicized guy who owns a pizza store there in Washington, D.C., to be dealing with George Soros, I mean, he's one of the biggest billionaires in the world. Alefantis is linked to David
Right.
Brock. He's been seen in photographs at parties with Linda Rothschild. There are definitely connections there that deserve investigation. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can tell you where he or anyone else would achieve power in Washington. The Clintons. The
Right.
Clintons. Prior to their defeat, her defeat in 2016, I can see clearly where he could be an awfully powerful person just by his connection to the Clintons. And we don't even know what it is. We don't know what that might be. It might be he's giving them a bazillion dollars through the foundation. We have no idea.
the guy's playing ping
He
pong at the
could
White
get-
House. He's obviously connected.
Yes. And that's what the Clintons sell, Jason. That's what Hillary did. That's what Bill does. That's what they do with the Clinton Foundation. They sell power.
Influence,
Power.
access, yeah,
They sell connections.
right.
So, yeah. Now, does that mean the entire Pizzagate thing was fraud? No. No. Parts of it can be true.
Mhm.
But you know this. You know, we go out, you and I, and we cover, let's say, a story, and we get 80%, because of our limitations of what we can investigate, we get 80% of it right. But there's 20% that, we screwed up on. All right?
Plus or minus.
We are totally then discredited. Totally.
What do you-
And they'll use that on us every day.
Ah, right. Well, I mean, when I look
Now
at what's,
isn't it amazing, the New York Times and all these other people, they can be wrong daily about stories that they cover that come out and prove that they were absolutely wrong. And it doesn't faze them. It just doesn't faze them.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of the things that stands out in my mind about what's going on with Alex Jones and InfoWars is, you know, Alex is saying that mainstream outlets like the New York Times, as you've just mentioned, are making things up and exaggerating things. I tend to
Yes.
believe him that that is happening because
That's
what
right.
Alex Jones represents, I mean, I like Alex Jones. I like InfoWars. Alex was absolutely an inspiration for Crowdsource the Truth. I like the idea of an independent news channel that's not owned by billionaires. And I feel like Alex Jones is a threat to the New York Times and CNN. When Hillary Clinton mentioned him by name in her now infamous alt-right speech prior to the election, I felt like that was a real turning point for alternative news. I think there were a lot of people who had never heard of Alex Jones, and it seemed like a strategically stupid thing for Hillary Clinton to acknowledge him at all. But I guess...
Absolutely. Had I been advising her, there is no way I would have allowed that to happen. No way. You just put Alex Jones on the map.
Right.
Is what I would have told her.
Right. She did.
You don't do that. But you don't tell Hillary stuff.
Right.
Hillary does what Hillary wants to do.
Well.
And you don't dare cross her.
Yeah. She is the smartest woman in the world.
The other thing that happens, Jason, the other thing that happens is by identifying him, bringing him up in the world, so to speak, validating him, she also guaranteed his future of they've got to destroy him.
Right.
They've got to destroy Alex Jones. And they will, somehow, some way. Now, when I say they will, I'm talking about the mainstream media, not the alternative, but they will put up such a front against Alex that people that we need, you and I, people that heretofore have not been involved in politics, have not bothered to get into it, well, now we need them to start paying attention.
Right.
But then when they see all of this kind of goofy stuff, they just write us off and say, oh, they're crazy.
Well, and
surely you don't believe that guy, that kind of stuff.
Right. Well, it's happening actually right now as we speak, Larry. Some person here in Periscope is saying, oh, a year later, and they're still talking about Hillary. I mean, the woman is still in the news. She's talking about possibly running in 2020. She's going around the world, New Zealand, everywhere, maligning the elected president, Donald Trump. So certainly relevant. And obviously, she's this whole idea of like, oh, that happened a year ago, forget about it. What are you talking about? This is one of the kingpins in the largest and most sophisticated criminal syndicate that's ever existed, and she's gone unprosecuted. And I look at that in contrast to what's happening with Paul Manafort. The guy's been thrown in solitary confinement. And now that we're a couple days into his trial here, it seems like every day, Larry, they're coming out with information that the judge is admonishing Mueller's team and that the star witness was involved in embezzling and is himself a criminal and admitting to criminal activity. What kind of insight can you give us about what the future may hold for Paul Manafort, why Paul Manafort has been targeted in the way that he has? Does that seem Clintonian to you?
Well, absolutely. I mean, he's done.
Manafort's done.
Paul Manafort is done. He's done.
How do you mean?
Whatever money he had, they're going to take it from him.
Got it.
Even if he wins, even if he comes out of this trial victorious, you know how the Clintons think? I know because I did it to people, so I'm fairly good at speaking about this. Mm-hmm. All we had to do, Jason, when somebody posed a potential threat to Bill, with something they knew, caught him with his wife or whatever.
Right.
All we had to do was get them charged with a crime. Mm-hmm. Just go to the prosecutor who was in the tank with the Clintons and say, charge this guy with a crime, whatever crime you want to come up with. Now, when it came out that that person was being charged with a crime, 80% of the people in that day believed you're guilty. 80%.
Just right
Put
off
it
the
in
bat.
the bank. Yeah, the old saying was, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Right.
Then there was the old saying that, well, if it shows up in print, it's got to be true. If it was on television, it's got to be true. Right. Or they couldn't say it or they'd be sued.
Right.
That don't work in a criminal prosecution. Now, the scarier thing still is which is why I say he's done, is after the person, after it comes out 6 months, a year later, that the person was innocent. He had nothing to do with it, wasn't even in the same country that whatever happened. A year later, 6 months later, you know what happened then? 50% of the people believe you're guilty and just got by with it.
Right.
And you know that's true, Jason.
Well,
you know that is true.
Absolutely. It's a character assassination in the court of public opinion. And I mean, you know, the thing that I find amazing is that this is exactly what's being done to me, to Alex Jones. You know, first they say Alex Jones said all this stuff about Sandy Hook. I don't believe he did say that, but they're, you know, promulgating this lie, this rumor, this exaggeration to the extent that, you know, that's what people have heard, and you say it enough times. It's like a McDonald's slogan, you know, you keep saying it enough and then eventually it's just locked in your brain as...
Yeah, and where does Alex go to say, I didn't say that? Where can he go to put up a defense when it's in the media?
Right.
And the media doesn't have to do anything it doesn't want to.
Well, the only place he
So
can go is
how does he defend
InfoWars.
himself?
He can only do it on InfoWars, and when they deplatform him, as they have done now to a substantial extent, he loses the ability to do that. So this is exactly like this team of, you know, David Brock-esque operatives on YouTube who have been for months and over a year now pushing false stories about me.
Yeah, now let me tell you about your bud, David Brock.
Yeah.
See, I knew David Brock when he was a conservative. Oh, yes. David Brock, when Clinton first ran for the presidency, David Brock was one of the most outspoken, conservative, they didn't call them bloggers back then, but writers. There was. He comes in, he works with me, Larry Patterson, Roger Perry, works with us, we give him all this stuff. All of a sudden, the Clintons find out that he's queer. See, nobody knew that.
Gay.
No one knew that back then. Excuse me. Gay or queer, whatever.
Right. You're old school people.
When they found that out, all of a sudden, overnight, Brock, who had investigated the stuff we had said and was overwhelmed with the proof that we had, printed, put out in the paper that he was wrong going after the Clintons, that they hadn't done anything.
Wow.
They were clean. Yeah.
That's amazing.
He went so far as to say he had checked out all the womanizing stories and there was no truth in any of it.
Wow. You know, it brings me to another question, Larry, because it reminds me very much of someone else you may know, Christopher Ruddy. Now, Christopher Ruddy wrote a book that I am quite fond of called The Strange Death of Vince Foster. And it seemed to me... I worked with him on it.
Sure did.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed to me that Christopher Ruddy would be probably public enemy number one in the Clintons' book, because the investigation that he initiated in the writing of that book, I think, was astounding. It revealed quite a lot of evidence in that murder that you and I have discussed on previous episodes. But the book, of course,
may I tell you about Chris Ruddy?
Yes, please.
Chris Ruddy worked, when I first met him, he was with the Pittsburgh Tribune. And he was the one that I was able to work, about the only newspaper in America that I could actually get stuff printed in. And it was Chris Ruddy at the Pittsburgh Tribune. Then he and Joe Farah decided to break away and form their own organization. And they did. It wasn't long when they had formed their organization that Ruddy and Farah had a falling out. Chris called me, very upset, said, "What do I do, Larry?" And I said, "Well, why do you need him? Why don't you just do it? He said, well, that's what I was calling. So anyway, to make that short, he used me, and I was on every talk show everywhere in America every day on the radio, 20 hours plus a day, every day, all over the country. And I would take Ruddy on with me. We'd do a joint program, and we raised $10 million.
Wow.
For him to have the money to start media.
Newsmax.
What's the name of it?
Newsmax.
Newsmax. Yes, for him to start Newsmax. $10 million. He was aggressive. His reporters were aggressive. Then, after Bill Clinton was elected, his second time, I see Chris Ruddy on MSNBC, and there he was. He said, you know, I made a mistake talking bad about Bill Clinton. I wished I would not have done it.
Right.
Well, that
Very
drove
strange.
me insane. That drove me insane because I know what he knew. I know what the man knew. And for him to say that bothered me.
What happened that caused them to be friends?
Well,
because
finally, I talked to an icon in California, anyway, broadcasting, George Putnam.
Mhm.
George Putnam was a guest writer in Newsmax, and I had done George on KABC out in L.A. forever. George told me that Ruddy had been bought out by the Republican Party. And the Republican Party was dictating to him what he could or could not say. And as long as he did what they said, they made sure he had the funding and advertising and et cetera to keep his publication going.
Really? But the Republican Party, I
And
mean,
that's-
I don't understand how that makes him friends with Bill
Republican
Clinton. There's this photo of Chris Ruddy with Bill Clinton at Newsmax, and I could have sworn I saw an item somewhere that said that the Clintons had somehow been involved in sending money to Newsmax.
Could have been. Could have been. But you have to understand, back in that day, Jason, I was trying to tell people that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party were no different. They were the same guys. They just played a game.
Right.
Today, that's easily believed. Back then, it wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't. You know that.
Yeah. No,
Everybody
absolutely.
thought. There was a guy on Fox Business. Can't remember his name. Not Cavuto. But anyway, came to Fox from CNN, business guy, and he finally said that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party were two birds with different. They're the same bird with different wings, or something like that. And that was the first time anybody that I heard publicly pronounce that the Democrats and the Republicans were the same.
Right.
And they are the same. Some
Right.
of them, I'm not talking about all of them, but certainly that which we call now the deep state. The
Yes.
Republicans are just as knee-deep in coordinating stuff with the Democrats as the Democrats are.
That's right. And before we get on to Maxine Waters, it brings me to this item that is in True Pundit just right now, talking about John McCain, obviously a Republican or rhino, illegally fed classified FBI intelligence to Fusion GPS, the opposition research firm that hired Christopher Steele and had the meeting. Fusion GPS, there was a great video on Judicial Watch where their lead investigator, Chris, I wish I could remember his last name, he did a great video, and I'll show it on a future broadcast, but he was talking about how the way Natalia Veselnitskaya, the Russian lawyer who met with Trump Jr., he described it in terms of an intelligence operation, how she first met with Glenn Simpson before the Trump Tower meeting and then met with him again after the Trump Tower meeting. So it was sort of like a debrief to tell her, here's what you should discuss. And then after their meeting, she reports back what was actually discussed. But it just, the whole thing reeks of cannon fodder for the mainstream news to talk about, you know, negative statements about Donald Trump Jr. And of course, they may feel, hey, you know what, Donald Trump is impervious to our attacks, but no one is going to be able to resist an attack on a child. So it seems like there's no low that the anti-Trump Democrats or Republicans will stoop to try to wrestle power away from Donald Trump, even as he continues to do things that we want a president to do, like changing the rules of engagement to keep our military forces in Afghanistan and Iraq and everybody around the world safer and give them an opportunity to defend themselves. He's speaking with Putin, he's speaking with North Korea, putting sanctions on Iran. We've just heard, Larry, that in testimony in a wrongful death suit brought by freedomwatchusa.org, that an expert witness testified that the detonators for IEDs in Afghanistan are being manufactured and paid for by Iran.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I got that. I was told that from Benjamin Netanyahu himself.
When did you speak to Netanyahu?
Huh?
When did you speak to Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, I've known him for 30 years.
Wow.
I can't talk to him very much because I don't want to get roped into not being a registered, foreign agent or some goofball thing, and it poses a problem today.
They'll pinch you for that.
No.
Chris Farrell is the guy, according to Periscope, who is the investigator at Judicial Watch. Thank you, Periscope.
Yeah. Now, let me tell you something, guys. When we first heard, maybe y'all have forgotten, when we first heard about the fake dossier, John McCain sent his chief of staff straight to London to get a copy and then bring it back and personally delivered it to Comey. Personally delivered it to James Comey. And by the way, if you doubt me on that, Comey testified to that in this hearing.
Wow.
But he said he already had it. By the time he got back with it, of course he already had it. Well, of course he already had it. John McCain is the problem.
Yeah.
He is not what people think he is. But dear God, getting people, look, the two-party system in America, if we're not destroyed when all of this is said and done, we're going to be lucky. But if we are destroyed, the thing that sold us down the river as a nation was the two-party system, because the two-party system relegated us to, when we vote for at least national figures and a lot of state races as well, when we vote, Jason, we're relegated to only the lesser of two evils. And that's what the party is set up to do. The parties are set up, they pre-choose who they're going to have be their candidate. And then every once in a while, very seldom, do you have someone like a Trump that's able to come in and with his money, his private money, and his marketing acumen, beat the system.
Right.
But look at Bernie Sanders. By all that's holy, Bernie Sanders, although I don't wish him to be president of anything, but by all that is fair, he should have been, and most agree, the Democratic nominee for the presidency in 2016.
Absolutely.
But thanks to the Clintons' power within the party, being able to finagle and rig the party, they beat him out of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
a lot
to
of...
show you how strong these parties are.
Right.
even after he had had the presidency stolen from him for the primary for the Democrats, after he had it stolen from him, he comes out and supports Hillary.
Well, right. That was so crazy.
Because he has to.
Yep.
Because if he plans to run again, he knows that he's got to run as a Democrat.
Yeah.
No third-party candidate, as we sit today, can win the presidency of the United States. No third-party candidate can.
Yeah, we learned quite a lot about that from the class action lawsuit filed by Jared and Elizabeth Beck through their jampack.us organization. And some of the documents coming out of that suit are just staggering, talking about how, they basically, the DNC has essentially admitted that, voting, it doesn't matter. They can choose whoever they want, and they can choose whichever candidate they want, irrespective of what the voters actually choose. I mean, it's not a shock to you, I know, Larry, but it's a shock to see that in a court document.
Well, and again, this shows you the completeness of this cabal, this coup that's actively taking over our government, taking over our country. Already have our government, but they're trying to take our country away from us.
Right.
They can be blatant. They can be open now. You know why? Because who are you going to call to go after them? Who do we call to straighten these inequities out? Who, Jason?
Don't know.
Tell me.
Don't know.
Manafort, I didn't finish about him.
Sure.
The thing that has rocked the boat with Paul Manafort's case is that Judge Ellis, I believe is his name.
Yes.
He has, like Trump did, he has thrown the system a curve ball. He is not playing the rules the way the rules are supposed to be played in the black robe court system we have today. And so he is every day, as I understand, calling the prosecutor out for going after Manafort. But it's not about Manafort. It's about Trump. They're trying to hoodwink Trump.
Yeah.
And the judge is calling them on it.
Isn't
it fantastic?
It is. You had a great
after
insight.
3 days.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Well, after 4 days, in a key case, this is the key case that, what's his name, has had on Trump, right?
Mueller.
Key case.
Yep.
And after 4 days, there's not been one inkling of evidence related in any way to Trump.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah. And in fact, it's one news article after the next. Even this court sketch shows the judge holding up his hands in what looks like frustration at the lack of preparedness, professionalism, whatever it might be. But it doesn't seem like this case is going in Mr. Mueller's favor. And you had a great insight in our last conversation, Larry, that really the outcome of this trial doesn't matter for Mueller. He's just moving ahead with a plan, which is to smear crap all around anything having to do with Donald Trump, such that an upstanding business person is not going to want to participate in Donald Trump's cabinet for fear of this kind of prosecution, persecution. We need a word that combines the two. But it really is shocking. I don't know Paul Manafort. I haven't closely investigated the allegations or the facts and details of his case, but I've been disgusted by the fact that his house was invaded. He was thrown in jail without bail. The man's certainly never been accused of a violent crime. I don't know why they needed to keep him in solitary confinement. And I'm just shocked that the average citizen isn't fearful of this type of activity by law enforcement, because certainly if they can do it to Paul Manafort, who is a wealthy, politically connected guy compared to most anyone, that doesn't bode well for the rest of us.
No, it doesn't. Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows, once again, there are two standards of law. There's a standard of law that applies to all of us. And then there is this standard of law that applies to this elitist class. And that doesn't just mean they don't get prosecuted. That means they can finagle and step on anybody they want to step on. And here's the killer of the Manafort thing. Jason, I'm sorry, have you heard any of the quote-unquote so-called mainstream media, or MSNBC or CNN, have you heard any of them talking about what Judge Ellis has done to rebuke Mueller for, not prosecuting Manafort for trying to go after Trump? I mean, have you seen anything other than in the alternative media?
I just Googled CNN Judge Ellis, and the very first thing to come up is, this is crazy. It's brought up an article, and the first thing it told me is I'm using an ad blocker, so, CNN obviously saying that. The article is titled Baked Alaska Birthday Cake, Memorable Lines from Judge Ellis. So I don't know if this is talking about or not.
Like that.
He says move along, urging prosecutors to move along. We'd have to read this to really evaluate it, but it seems to me like CNN and even Fox, when I have turned those on, are much more focused on Natalia Veselnitskaya and how serious they're trying to make this meeting at Trump Tower seem, but it strikes me as absolutely nothing there, and that there's a lot of possibility that Donald Trump Jr. thought the meeting was about the Magnitsky Act and the adoption of Russian children. And on one day Trump said, they have information about Hillary Clinton. But it's amazing how they make a huge deal out of it being against the law to accept information from a foreign agent that might impact an election, but yet they've done exactly that with this Christopher Steele document. How can they, on the same news broadcast, tell you that Donald Trump Jr. meeting with a lawyer who claims to have some information that he never even got and they never even used, that's a crime, but having this dossier from a British agent about activity in Russia, who's also a foreign guy, is the entire basis for this Mueller investigation, has been 2 years worth of news for all these morons.
And if you want to go with collusion and conspiracy with Russia, how on earth can you, at least in the semblance of fairness, exclude the fact that the Clinton campaign actually did do it? They didn't go to a meeting where somebody claimed they had trash on Hillary. They paid for somebody to dig up trash.
Well, not even dig it up, make it up.
To make it up.
They made it up, right. Digging up trash is one thing, because that means there's trash that's been buried. Making up trash seems absolutely crazy to me. But while you're talking about division, Larry, I want to bring you back to one of the topics that you and I were discussing in our phone call preparing for this, and that, of course, is Maxine Waters, who Donald Trump this week has been calling low IQ, and I can't say that I would disagree with him. She's done some things that are pretty surprising for a congressional representative, including inciting crowds to push back at Trump supporters and kick them out of restaurants and, make a scene at a gas station. Doesn't it seem like that type of suggestion from a public figure who is supposed to be responsible and a lawmaker and promoting harmony and unity, doesn't it seem like she's inciting violence, unrest? What do you have to say about Maxine Waters?
Now, I want to say something, and folks, this is me. That has nothing to do with Jason. This is me, my opinion. But I'm going to tell you, I have, Jason, those people that have known me for years know. I have said all this talk about arming up, forget it. Well, I'm not saying that now. But not for the reasons people would think. I'm not saying you need to arm up, have weapons in your home to protect you from the law. No. The police are our friends. The police we need and never go against them. But thanks to Maxine Waters, and don't think she may be ignorant, but she's not stupid. Don't think that her going around and inviting people to attack supporters of Trump, people that work for Trump, don't think that she's doing that accidentally. She's not. Jason, she is trying to get this group that's out there. In America, there's a group of people, most psychiatrists will tell you, whatever the percentage is of the population, some as high as 10%, which would mean 30 million, Americans are mentally unstable.
I know a few of them.
You never know, Jason, what you and I could say that could trigger an unstable person to go postal.
Right.
You got to be careful. You and I do. We have to be careful.
Yeah.
Not because of being sued or taken off the air. We have to be careful of just being responsible human beings and trying to not do anything to cause someone to be hurt or killed.
Yes.
But then you got Maxine Waters and her crowd. They're out there. They're out there pushing it. They're pushing it. And what's going to happen? One day, soon, one day, somebody is going to hear what she says, or the people putting out what she says, and they're going to act on it. And Jason, when that happens, whether it's a conservative, a liberal, a Democrat, a Republican that gets shot or killed, maimed, Maxine Waters, I'm telling you, when that day happens, I'm coming after you. I'm coming after you, Waters.
Well,
You
careful
can
there.
claim racism, you can claim all that stuff. Now, let me clarify. I'm not coming after Jason to physically harm her in any way.
With news.
I am going to prosecute her
Right.
for inciting violence, inciting riots, and at the same time sue her for the same.
Right.
Now, if I have to, Jason, I will make a citizen's arrest on the woman. If I can't get the police to have, if I can't get a prosecutor to do it, then I'll do it.
Right. Well, that seems
But,
reasonable,
Jason,
Larry.
they want it to happen.
Right. Coming after someone with the law is something that you are certainly permitted to do, and that is reasonable, and thank you for clarifying that statement. You know, Larry, I think, again, one of your predictions may already be coming true. I think a lot of people know I was in Philadelphia yesterday to interview the Strange family and the Hamburger family 7 years after the destruction of Extortion 17 and the murder of their two sons, Michael and Patrick. And as I was getting off the train arriving in Philadelphia, I had seen some tweets from Candace Owens. I don't know if you're familiar with Candace, but she is a black woman who used to be a Democrat and has switched sides and decided that she is a conservative now. Her beliefs are more aligned with conservatives than what the Democratic, liberal, whatever you want to call it, progressive party has become. And apparently Antifa protesters had accosted her and Charlie Kirk in a Philadelphia cafe. So it would seem that these people have taken Maxine Waters' call to harassment. They've taken it to heart, and they're endangering this young woman and her associate as they're eating in a cafe. How is that an American way to respond to a disagreement with someone's political beliefs? Shouldn't Maxine Waters suggestions and admonishments be limited to instructing people how to vote rather than encouraging them to, get into a crowd and assault these people?
Jason, we've never heard this kind of discourse from sitting politicians in my lifetime. I've never heard this.
Yeah.
Now, it's already happened, I think you could say, with Steve Scalise.
Yes.
The man was injured to the point of nearly dying.
Right.
I mean, we don't know, Jason, there with that Candace lady. We don't know if there was a person right there in that mob that had a weapon on them.
Right.
That was within an inch of pulling it and using it in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
We don't know. But it's dangerous that it would even get to the point to where you have to worry about that.
Absolutely.
But I assure you, you better. You have to worry about it. I have to worry about it. You ought to see the threatening letters I get, the threatening text I get when I come on your show. I mean, somebody's always going to kill me. Well, hell, come on. Quit talking about it. You want to do it? Come on.
Well, let's not.
Just know this. I will not sit back. I won't, Jason. No longer will I sit back and let family, friends, you, anybody I know, I'll not sit back and let people be hurt. No way. No way.
I think it's very important what happened yesterday in Philadelphia, and hopefully I'll get an opportunity to speak to Candace at some point. I don't know her, but it's an interesting story that I'd love to get into. Larry, I want to remind everybody.
I'd love for you to ask her.
Sure.
Did she feel fear?
Right.
Did she feel fear? Because in the interest of law, that is significant.
Right.
If she felt physically threatened, that is significant in law.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Larry, I want to remind everyone that they can learn more about you and what you're up to by going to nicholslive.com. And of course, they can also go to the Larry Nichols YouTube channel, and that is, I apologize, I don't have that ready, but it's the Larry Nichols official YouTube channel, and people can find that just by going on to YouTube. I'm going to have that for us in just a moment here. There it is.
While you're doing that, Jason, let me say to everybody, we need you, the audience, all of you. We need you to help us grow the Crowdsource audience. You got to do it. You got to help us. Jason can't do this by himself. He can't. We need you. And if there's ever been a time that your actions or inactions are important, it's today. It's now. So please invite people. Please invite people to come to Jason's Crowdsource. Please. We've got to get people there, an army of people. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. Don't apologize. I really appreciate your endorsement, Larry. And, something I've been doing over the past couple of weeks, sort of, in response to the attacks that Crowdsource the Truth has been under for over a year, and now the removal of InfoWars and Alex Jones from major platforms just makes me feel more of a need to redouble the efforts with this. But we've been doing special shows only on Patreon, and I've been doing shows with Quinn Michaels. I've been doing shows with Kevin Shipp. We have a new show starting this week with David Hawkins. And so people can go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and they can become a monthly sponsor of the show for as little as $1 per month. People can continue to enjoy these live streams, even if YouTube chooses to shut us down, even if malicious detractors put in anonymous strikes. We've got an independent platform over there on Patreon, and the micro sponsorship distributed over a large audience really is an effective way, I believe, to keep the news honest and to prevent any one large sponsor from having undue economic influence on the source of the news. I always appreciate your insights. Yes.
Well, one thing that everybody had better recognize, we have to find alternative sources and have them ready to go
Right.
for the day that they do unplug.
Exactly.
So I beg you, go to the Patreon where he's talking about. Get on it. We've got to find some other way. If we have to depend on Google, Facebook, that crowd, if we have to depend on that, here's what's going to happen, Jason, and I'll let you go. Come the 2018 midterm election, sometime between now and then, they're going to so dismantle it, so restrict what can be used or put on it, so that it cannot be a tool to help get the truth out in this race coming up.
Absolutely.
So
And I also want to remind people, Larry, that they can still go to real.video, and there is a video right up there that says Dems plan for the government to take over the internet, and it shows Mark Zuckerberg.
Yes.
So, you know, hopefully that won't happen. I really appreciate you joining me today and sharing your insights. It's always very interesting and entertaining to speak with you, Larry. I hope you're feeling well, and I will speak to you next week. Anything you want to leave our audience with before we wrap it up?
Well, I do, folks. This is the only program that I go on. The only one. This one. And I do it on a regular basis. That's how much I think of Jason and the format with the Crowdsource the Truth. So, I think if I'm worth anything to any of you, just know this program means so much to me and to the country. So please get involved. Spread the word. Find people. If there's somebody that you know that would enjoy the program, hey, why not pay their $1 a month for a year? You pay it. Get them on it. $12 is worth getting somebody on. You do it.
Thank you, Larry. It's really kind of you to say. We'll see you next week, Larry. I appreciate it so much. I've got shows coming up later today. We're going to have Jim Breslow and a new witness to the Las Vegas shooting who's going to be joining me at 7 p.m. And then I've got a special only on Patreon show with Quinn Michaels. Quinn has been discovering some amazing new information that we really want to share with the Patreon crowd. So Larry, I'll speak to you next week. I want to thank everybody for watching. I'll see you later.